All right, we are live. Just check everything out here. Talking. Can everybody hear me? I know no one's in the room yet, but when you guys start filling in, let me know if the audio's good and everything. Cool. Just getting everything situated. All right. All right. Looks like we got one viewer so far. Waiting on everyone to get in here. 3. All right. So, for those of you just joining today, we are going to continue work on the Mermaid piece. I've been out of town and been really busy, so I haven't had a chance to work on it since last time. I've been working on, well, I had to go to Dallas and do some tattoos, and I got to go to Dallas again tomorrow, no, Tuesday, I think, and do tattoos there again. So yeah, and then this week I've been just real busy. As soon as I got back, I've been tattooing the whole time. What's up, Santiago? Sorry. It's hard for me to read from the distance. Yeah, so I'll just go ahead and start getting my paint ready now. So my Micron airbrush is not spraying well. I need to, I guess, I tried getting it ready before the stream today, and it just is not in a good way. So I guess I'm gonna have to take it apart and really go through it. But my trusty Eclipse, I know a lot of people always ask what airbrush do I use, and I like to mainly recommend the Eclipse if you're a beginner, because the Eclipse just works every single time you use it. This is the Iwata HPCS. I've got mine actually gold plated, you can probably see on camera. But yeah, if you're looking for a trusty airbrush, don't go for the Micron, because the Micron is really for people that really want that hyper professional detail, that really micro detail. But the thing is about that airbrush, unless you're really taking care of it, it's very easy to break it, especially if you're somebody like me. Hey, what's up, everybody? What's up, Dennis? What's up, Kevin? So, and that being said, I think as far as a workhorse airbrush, an airbrush you can depend on every single time, and it's affordable, I would use the Iwata Eclipse, which is what I'm going to be using today. Again, that's not ideal for this project. I think I would rather have my Micron, but since my Micron isn't, in the best way right now, then I won't be using it. But that also shows you can do anything with the Eclipse. You don't need the Micron. It's just good to have it. So today, you guys can barely see off camera, I'm working on her face. So let's go ahead and get the colors ready. I'm getting a little bit of glare here. Let me see if I can. All right. All right. So we're working on skin tone colors, and also I'm going to use that. I'm going to try to find something that's in that real bright blue family. But for now, let's get that skin tone looking good. I think I'm going to start with some burnt sienna. And probably some yellow. So there's a little burnt sienna. Oh, you said you bought the Eclipse from the Art Circus. Yeah, man, that's a trusty airbrush for sure. Oh, somebody says they can't. They only speak French. That sucks. I don't speak French at all, so I apologize. I would sit here and try to pretend to know French, but then I'll just make myself look like an idiot. Which is easy to do because I am a bit of an idiot. So I started with a little bit of burnt sienna. I'm trying to get it really close to the skin tone. So it looks like there's going to be, I don't know, that's a hard one because there's some blues in there, all kinds of strange colors. So let's add a little bit of yellow. And so when I mix colors, I really just start with something that's close, like for instance the burnt sienna, and then I just tint it and move it around until it kind of falls into the family or into the color that I'm looking for. When we last left off, I was actually establishing all these dark areas because if you guys were watching and following along, you probably will notice that everything looked pretty light or pretty dark in certain areas. Once you put the dark areas in, it helps your eyes to really gauge what your values a lot better. So what you want to do in a painting like this is you want to locate your darkest values and put those in kind of early on the painting, and also your lightest values, and that really helps your eye to gauge the value. If you try working, say, from light to dark, you might go too dark and not know it, or the whole time you're too light and you don't know it. So if you can kind of, in the beginning process, get those lights and darks in there, it really helps your eyes out a lot. Kevin says not a lot of channels in French. Man, yeah, that's unfortunate. Well, hopefully you can follow along. Okay, let's add a little bit of white to this. So far I've only got burnt sienna, yellow, and white. Again, just trying to match that color a little bit. So I'm a little on the orange side right now. Definitely on the yellowy orange side, so let's kill that. So if you think in terms of your color wheel, the opposite of yellow would be purple. So let's go ahead and add some purple to it, some violet, and see what that does. So basically, since it's a little on the yellowy orange side, once we add this violet, it'll start toning down that yellowy orange and just start moving it across the color wheel, and we'll get closer to what we're looking for. I think of color, for those of you that haven't heard me do this before, I think of color as a tug of war. So if you think of the color wheel, you've got yellow, red, and blue, and then you've got black and white. They're constantly playing a tug of war against each other. And then you got your secondary colors, which will be orange, violet, and green. And you want those colors, so if something is, say, too red, you use green and you pull it across that color wheel to make that tug of war happen, and then you can tint them all the way around it. That's how I do it. Like, I don't have like that's how my brain kind of gets to the colors I'm looking for. So we're getting closer now. It's still a little on the yellowy orange side. I don't know if I actually added the violet. I got to talking. Looks like I did. Went on autopilot there for a minute. So I added 3 drops of the violet. And if you go too far into the violet side, just add another drop of yellow. It'll kick it back the other direction. I always think if colors have a strength to them, like, yeah, we're getting closer now. So if you think of values of being a strength, so the darker the value, the stronger the color, the lighter the value, the weaker the color. A good example of this is if you have white, and you add black to it, because black is darker in the value scale, that black is going to really overpower the white very quickly. But if you add white to black, you have to add a lot more white to overpower the black. So because white is going to be weaker. So you think of the same thing when it comes to true colors. So if you have, say, a blue and you add yellow to it, the yellow is going to affect the blue far more subtly than that blue is going to affect the yellow. So if you're trying to make green, it's better to start with yellow and add blue to get to green than it is to start with blue and add yellow. If you're trying to make orange, for instance, you want to start with yellow, add red. Or let's say you want to make purple. And red would be, let's see, blue would be darker on the value scale and red would be brighter. So if you're trying to make orange, it's best to, or not orange, but purple or violet, it's best to start with red and add blue. So that's what I've done here. I started with something that was a little more on the orangey yellow side. I add a little bit of white, and then I just started slowly adding drops of violet until it kind of starts heading into the color that I'm looking for. So looking at my reference, there is a lot of blue in here. So I might just add actual blue to this because it's still very warm, yet I can still see quite a bit of blue. So actually, if I add white to it, that should cool it off as well. Or is white warm? I always get that mixed up. I think white cools off your color. So let's add a little bit of white to it. Oh, we got some comments in here. Dennis says he's looking forward to the stream. Air Todd, what's up? Nikki, what's up? All right. So I'm probably going to end up turning this, it's better to, let me see if I can find something. I'm going to test my color over here actually on her skin. Sometimes when I'm looking for a color for one part of the body, I end up finding a color for another part of the body. Like, I accidentally find a color that I could use somewhere else. So instead of getting rid of that color, what I'll do is I'll just use the color as I'm doing right now. I guess you guys can't see on screen, but I'm putting the color on her arm because it matches better for her arm than her face right now. Let me move this light out of the way. Okay. My tablet's getting a big glare from the lights today. So there's definitely a lot more warmer tones in my reference than there is in my actual painting. But that's all right, because you don't have to nail the tones spot on. That's kind of not really that necessary. And you can also tint the tones also. So right now I'm just barely hitting it with a little bit of this color that I'm not going to have later because I'm going to mess it up. Again, I'm just kind of re-explaining what I just said, but that's what I'm doing right now. I'm jumping all over the whole piece, just kind of, while I got the color, just putting it in. My shoulder's in the way. Oh, okay. Sorry, guys. Let me move the camera just a hair. Yeah, did you see it? Alex must have noticed. He came down here to fix it. Sorry, I couldn't see. I was... So Alex is fixing the camera right now. You're good right there. Hi, do you guys like the way it's framed in right now? I guess. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit of blue to my mixture now. Now this blue can be very powerful, so I'm just gonna add it just tiny bits at a time.
Are you working on the scales too?
I will a little bit, yeah. Mainly working on the face. There we go. Face and hair is going to be my focus today. Yeah, see, just like I thought, that blue just takes control pretty quickly. That might be a good thing, because it's actually closer to what the reference is representing. What's that? Yeah, it looks pretty good. You guys like the new framing? All right, now that I think I got the color somewhat close to where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and reduce my paint down so that it sprays a little bit better. See, just doing that little color wheel dance works really well, because this blue is actually doing exactly what it should be doing to the tones, kind of moving it. What's the name of my paint? Createx Illustration Colors. Ooh, that blue is super blue. So to kill blue, if we think it's just a little on the blue side, that's going to be orange. But we don't have an orange over here, so I'll just use a little bit of that burnt sienna. Now I'm going to reduce it quite a bit. For those of you who haven't been following my videos very long, you really overdo it with the reducer when you're painting in the style that I paint in. Like, I'm talking really over reduce it. And then I use also a lot of 40-30 to help it spray smoother. Yeah, no problem, Kevin. Okay. Let's see. Add a little bit of 40-30. You know, it's funny, when I get around other artists, I always hear them talk about all their like art theories. Like, for instance, more textbook style theories. And it's always harder for me when I try to wrap my head around theories in that way. Like, for instance, you know, they'll explain that, like, shadows are cooler and highlights are warmer and things like that. And always it kind of throws me off because I'm such an intuitive artist. I just see it and I'm able to do it. And so if I'm constantly thinking about theory, it can kind of throw me off, make me second guess my intuitive judgment, I guess. And I'm doing that right now. I'm thinking about theory as I paint and instead of just painting. So with this fine detail stuff, it's very easy to overdo it. So I tiptoe in. There's a lot of reducer going on. So I was this morning I was watching another artist paint, and he does that really hyper realistic stuff. He does the giant paintings that are extremely hyper realistic. I'm talking super HD detail, and I always think about that. I'm like, because I don't know if I would want to do that as an artist. Like, I think it looks cool, but then I think it kind of, I don't know. I think so. There's this thing in animation, like, you know, because computer animation in movies right now, they've gotten so good, but also so bad at the same time, because there's this thing they call the uncanny valley. That's when, if you're trying to do something a certain way and you're trying to, like, whether it's realistic or whether it's animated and you want it to look a little on the cartoony side, once you cross that uncanny valley and you go too far into realistic, yet you're trying to maintain something cartoony, it's distracting to the viewer. And so I kind of think of that sometimes when I'm doing my paintings. I'm like, how far do I want to go into realistic while still maintaining the fact that it's a painting and not distract the viewer so that they're more worried about my detail and they're more worried about how much I got into realism and not really worried so much about the painting itself. And so I think about that a lot. I see that in tattoos as well. Looks like there's a conversation going on in there. Looks like we could use a little more, probably like red and violet. So I'm gonna do a drop of violet. I'm gonna dump out some of this paint and add some more reducer to it. This is how I always end up making a mess. You know, I'm noticing I don't have any paper towels over here, so I might go get some of those here in just a second. Yeah, Dennis is reminding everybody to smash the like button. Yeah, guys, if you guys could like and subscribe if you like watching me do these live streams. Also, while I'm streaming, I don't really always have a lot to say. So if you guys have any questions or anything like that for me, go go ahead and post up the questions. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know, I don't know, let me know what kind of questions you want to ask. And I can talk forever about it. So give me just a second. I'm going to go get some paper towels. So I was wanting to put together, like I always think on the fly about what would be like my top 5 pieces of advice for airbrush artists, for beginning airbrush artists. And that's a really, really hard one. I've definitely gone through that before, but I think about it often. I do think that drawing is probably the number one thing. Freehand skills and freehand ability is the number one thing. The more you draw, the better you'll be. Again, if you guys have any questions at all, go ahead and post them up. Make sure to smash the like button and squeeze the subscribe button. All right, let's see how we're doing now. I'm about to get in some really fine details. That's why I'm sitting here messing with my airbrush so much, is I want to make sure these details are sharp. So I do think I need a little more violet. We're going to nail this color eventually. I always just do like 2 drops at a time. I try not to, I don't want to like backpedal. So how many guys on here are from the Patreon page? Oh, let's see what we got here. Oh, well, thank you, Nikki. I'm glad you like the videos. Ray, I do not use Drew Blair's spring. This is just a stock airbrush. The only thing I changed about it was a friend of mine gold plated it for me. But other than that, it's stock. I don't really have a problem with the spring, to be honest. I never, I mean, there's never been a time where I was like, man, I wish the spring worked differently, you know? So I don't know. I mean, it might be better, Drew Blair spring, but I've just personally never used it. I've used other springs, and you know what? And to be honest, I love the guys that make these products. They're really cool guys in person. I just personally have never used a spring where I noticed enough of a difference where I was like, you know, oh my God, I need to have this spring. Like, But then again, like I said, I can't really speak on it too much because I don't have enough experience with it. Yeah, so for those of you that are just tuning in, I took a week off because I had to go to Dallas and tattoo some people there. So I wasn't able to paint. And then I had to do a bunch of tattoos when I got back. So I'm just now getting back to painting again. That's why you haven't seen any progress yet. We got some Patreon guys. Hey, what's up? Hey, so Faith and I put a pause on the payments on Patreon just until we can get this finished and until we get the next full tutorial finished. So far, the reason I haven't been putting out tutorials is basically this painting right here. This painting is consuming so much of my painting time that it's all I've been working on whenever I have the airbrush in my hand. But as soon as this painting is finished, the tutorials will keep coming. So I just want to let you guys know that. But we're not going to charge the patrons for the time that I'm just, not putting out tutorials. So what we did is we just suspended the payments until this is finished because we thought it would be fair. But if you guys like what you're seeing, you can still do super chats and stuff like that. So here on YouTube, there's a tip system called Super Chat. So if you guys like what I'm doing here and you want to support my stream, then Super Chats are a great way to do that. What's the price of this airbrush? I bought this at Hobby Lobby, which is a local store here. And I think I paid, I don't know, like $160 maybe for it. Oh, and those of you who are not on the Patreon, if you do want to go over there, I do have a full length tutorial on my monochromatic work. So there's a whole video with 30 something parts of my entire process for when I do monochromatic stuff. It's very, very, it's very well produced, I think. Well, for us doing it ourselves anyway. But I think we did a pretty good job on it. It's very detailed. I put as much information into that video as I could think to put in there. And anything that I didn't put in that video, you're getting right here in these live streams. Dennis is reminding everybody to click the share button. Yeah, guys, click the share button right now and see how many people we can get in here hanging out. The more people we get hanging out, then we'll get more questions and I'll have more answers and you guys can, you know, learn more. If that's why you're here, unless you're just here just to hang out. In which case, good to see you. Okay, it looks like for some of these I need quite a bit more, just more violet. That's what it keeps looking like. Yeah, Dennis says also flatten the share button if you could. Let's go ahead and flatten that share button and explode that like button. Could just go ahead and donkey punch the like button if you could. And thump on that share button. All right, now we're getting a cool color here. All right. I always love building these tones slowly like this because by the time that it's done, it has such a, I don't know, like a deep, deep look. When you're doing like layer over layer over layer over layer over layer, the look just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. What's up, Steven? Steve Leahy. All right, I think I'm getting to where I can actually do some of the blue stuff. Yeah. Where are we at? Let's see what we have in frame. Do we have the scales in frame? I'm going to put a little bit of detail on these scales. Yeah, it looks like the scales are in frame. Have you guys seen everything all right? Brian says, how much trigger resistance do I prefer? Man, I really don't pay a lot of attention, but I back off on the trigger resistance quite a bit, I think. Yeah, I don't know, man. I really don't pay a whole lot of attention to that. I don't like when it's really stiff. I know that. But usually I'm really bad to my airbrushes, and they get so worn out from just abusing them that they get stiff anyway. So last night I started watching Avatar: Last Airbender on Netflix, and I don't watch a lot of animes, but that one's starting to get me a little bit. I was having a good time with it. After we watched the fireworks, so Faith and I we're staying in an RV park right now, and we're right in the middle of all these neighborhoods, right on the coastline, right on the coast of the Gulf Coast of Florida. And so we went outside last night, and it was just beautiful weather. The sky, it was a full moon, so the sky was super bright. And we were surrounded by fireworks from all the local people because all the fireworks shows were shut down. So all the local people at their houses were just shooting off these enormous fireworks shows. And I swear it was like everywhere I looked. Plus all the clouds were rolling in from the ocean, and the clouds were creating these really neat shapes. And some of the coolest fireworks shows happened to be right behind the full moon. So you had all these clouds rolling in to a full moon, and the fireworks going off, and the perfect weather and everything. Last night was a good night. So we had a great time. So as the clouds rolled in, Faith and I was like, we were looking at them, and you know how you find shapes in clouds, which if you're trying to increase your creativity and you just don't know what to paint, a good thing to do is to go outside and look at the clouds. And when you see the shapes in the clouds, like, paint that. So we saw this whole like thing where we could make out like a lion with like somebody riding on it. We took pictures so we could remember the story, but it looked like one set of clouds was about to battle another set of clouds, and one set of clouds was like a lion and a gorilla, and it was going into battle against an elephant and a monkey, and it just was this epic shape. Plus you had that full moon lighting it just so nicely. And what was really cool is, so we filmed the whole thing so we could remember of this little story we're making up as we're looking at the fireworks and everything. And we're trying to see who wins because these clouds are collapsing into each other, the two battle. And so we decided to figure out who wins. And in the end, it was the elephant and the monkey that ended up winning. And what was so cool, as soon as the lion shape of the clouds kind of dispersed and lost its shape, a fireworks show went off right in the middle of it all, and it so almost looked like it was exploding and things. And it was so fascinating. The whole time I'm looking at this, I'm thinking like, this is creativity. You know, this is where creativity comes from. It comes from observation and a willingness to accept the story that you're being told, and then maybe paint something out of it. So we took a lot of pictures, a lot of references yesterday, and I don't know, I might do a painting of that whole thing that we, you know, it's hard to remember it in the moment. You can't remember this thing, but so we took a lot of videos and a lot of pictures, and I was talking about the story as we did it, so I would remember it. And then also the lighting is so great because the moon is lighting everything so well, and the fireworks and everything. So that'll give me a lot of reference for color and everything when I go to actually illustrate this battle, if I ever illustrate it. It was really neat. And again, after watching Avatar, The Last Airbender, it also made me realize like how many of these epic stories come from just that scenario. It's just, you know, some philosopher, some storyteller just watching some clouds or observing nature, whatever they're doing, and then just letting the story come to them, and then telling it that way. rather than sitting there just thinking in hibernation. Like if you think in isolation and you're just sitting there trying to come up with something creative, it'll be far more difficult to come up with that thing, because it's like you need inspiration. That's why you probably hear of a lot of artists going out into nature or going out in an isolated cabin somewhere so that they can really get into their creativity. Yeah, it would be a badass painting. It was very epic in scale, just because, again, I don't know if you guys are very familiar with these coastal clouds, but they are big, big clouds, man. They're so big and epic in just scale, just looking at them, and it makes the visions that you're seeing. It makes the creativity more grand. You can definitely tell where all those old stories came from. You know, the old stories of the old kings and the old gods all battling, and where all that inspiration came from. Zeus and all that, you know. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to put this color anywhere that I can see that I might need it later, because I'm gonna get rid of the color soon and do the deeper details of the face. Jose says, on what basis am I painting? Like, what's the theme of this one? This is a mermaid. This is just a painting that I got from. I was looking for a mermaid to paint for you guys for live stream, um, and I didn't have any good references, so I went online and was looking for photographers that photograph mermaids, and I found this one, and I wrote to her, and I can never think of her name off the top of my head. I need to put it on like a sticky note here. And anyway, she said I could paint this photograph that she took for you guys. So that's what I'm doing. I'm really only painting this both for myself to be an artist, I guess, for my own creativity, but I'm really doing it for the live stream so you guys have something cool to watch. And for my patrons from Patreon. Today, actually, most of the day today, because it was a day off, I spent most of the day on my tablet coming up with assets for my tattoos. Because when you're a tattoo artist, you have to design tattoos on the fly all the time. And I caught myself, I'm always doing leaves. I'm always making leaves, and I'm making filigree shapes and all these different shapes that I draw constantly all the time. And I end up redrawing the same shapes. So today I spent all morning long on my tablet making Procreate stamps of some of the elements that I end up drawing nearly every day from scratch, just to make things a little more streamlined. What am I painting on? This is a piece of metal that I got from Coast Airbrush. If you go to coastairbrush.com, this is, I think it's an 18 by 24 piece of airbrush metal. I think it's probably aluminum, I would guess. It is powder coated, I think, on both sides. So black on one side, white on the other. And again, you can buy this at Coast Airbrush. Of course, you can make your own as well. When I worked in a body shop, I would make my own panels all the time. But now that I don't work in a body shop and I work in a tattoo shop, I just buy the panels. Ray said he's been Orlando and Daytona. Yeah, man, it was storming hard. I didn't even know I was going to come in today because it was storming so hard. But it's blue skies out there right now. Clouds look amazing. It's beautiful. All right. I think I'm going to start shifting over to the blue color. So it's kind of an aqua blue green. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this color that I have and change colors. See, I don't mind kind of destroying my color. In fact, you know what? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to save it. I'm going to do the responsible thing. Save my color. I never save my color. I always end up just dumping it out, but I guess I'll go ahead and save it. It's very difficult to do. I don't want to spill all over myself. It's just like high risk of just making a mess. Normally I would walk off and do this over the sink or something, but I don't think you guys want to just sit there and look at a blank panel. Alright. Okay. So I'm gonna make an aqua blue now for her hair. So I think I'm gonna start with the deeper colors of blue, maybe. So it's gonna be pretty blue. So for the hair, you guys will notice these skin tones that look kind of strange, they're going to start looking a lot better once I start getting into this aqua color in her hair. So we're going to start with green, just like I said earlier, because green is going to be a lighter, like a weaker color compared to the blue. And I'll probably end up putting a little bit of white in there, I'm not sure, but let's go ahead and just see here. So here's green. And now we'll add some blue. Let's see what happens. Might have to add a touch of yellow, not sure yet. Okay. Add some reducer and see what we made. Ooh, almost there. So a lot more blue it looks like. I don't know. Let's see what it looks like on the page. Yeah, definitely some blue. Some more blue anyway. Uh-oh, getting closer. Okay. So that's going to be good for some of the deep tones. Still more blue it looks like. Still a little more on the green side than. Boy, that's going to be bright too. That's going to look good. Hold on. Probably need to add some cobalt in there here in a bit. Yeah, definitely more blue. We've got that, what is that called? Cerulean blue? Cerulean? I don't know. I might have some cobalt blue around here. It's probably the blue that's necessary right now. I don't know where it is. Give me just a second. I'm going to look for some cobalt blue. I got the same blue. You know what? This will work. I can make this work. So it's a lot of blue now. Yeah, that's a lot of blue. All right, let's see what happens here. So I think what I should do is add a touch of violet to this blue. Well, In the light tones it matches, but in the dark tones there's definitely more red in there. So I'll probably just sculpt it up with this light one. Is Florida my permanent residence? So Florida is going to be my permanent residence, yes. And I don't really talk about prices of my tattoos, but if you want to send me an email, if you go to www.edensedgetattoo.com and fill out our little client form, I'd be happy to talk about prices with you there. So again, Ray, if you go on the website, that'd be the best way to talk tattoos. This hair is, I don't think there's a single piece of this painting that isn't just crazy time consuming. Because it's just like crazy hair, scales, there's water everywhere. I mean, I'll get through it, no doubt, but this is definitely a very involved painting. Yeah, this color is going to make it pop for sure. Chuck wants to know if I use the Harder and Steenbeck brushes. I don't. I actually only really use Iwata. I don't think I really have little to no experience with any other airbrush. Yeah, I'm assuming that's another airbrush. So I've been using Iwata literally since I started even. Like the first airbrush I ever had was an Iwata, and I still use them today. And I'm going to use some white highlights here in the next layer to kind of give this more dimension as we go. There's definitely going to be a lot of cobalt blue in the background. I can see that already. So cobalt blue usually is a little more on the purpley side of blue. Dennis said we hit our mark. What's our mark, Dennis? You know what I probably need is Brady to come do a stream with us again. Turn it back into a party. When Brady was here, he gave us a lot to talk about. Let's get some lipstick up in there. Can you guys hear that siren in the background? I think it's an ambulance. An ambulance. I guess it was going here. Somewhere across the street. I can see directly out to our parking lot from here. That's why I keep looking up. I can almost see the ocean. Do I miss using standox? Sometimes. I don't miss the smell. But there's some solvents are like easier to use because because they're a solvent, because you're breaking them down. But with water-based paint, you're not breaking them down, so they can clog a little easier. But I don't really miss the I don't miss the smell. Like I couldn't be doing this right now if I was still using solvents. I couldn't be painting for you guys in my tattoo studio. I would still have to be working in a body shop. Well ventilated area, you know. Yeah, solvents are actually water-based is easier to clean than a solvent. Solvents just spray a little bit smoother, but I have additives that I add to my water-based paint, like 4030 and the 4012, and they make it spray a little bit smoother, which is exactly what I just did while I was talking about it. I was adding my additives to it so it would spray a little smoother. Nick says he thinks they stopped making 4012. Probably. I still have 4012 right here. So I know they want to start switching to 4011. I definitely should tune this paint down to where it's spraying a lot thinner. A lot thinner. Give me just a second. I'm gonna be right back. All right. So I'm gonna tune this paint way down. Using 4030, which is this right here, and my 4012, which you can use 4011. But I think they want everybody to switch to 4050 right now instead of 4030. Which is essentially the 4050 is the exact same as the 4030. It's just a different, it's a more updated version. I just am still using the 4030 because it's still what I'm accustomed to using. Okay, let's see if that helps spray a little bit smoother. Nope. Still pretty harsh. Yeah. So Diego wants to know, do I still tattoo? Yeah, I tattoo 5 or 6 days a week. I'm tattooing tomorrow. Did I tattoo yesterday? I think I tattooed yesterday. Um, yeah, I tattoo nearly every day. We actually just opened a brand new tattoo studio here in Florida called Eden's Edge Tattoo. That's owned by me and my girlfriend Faith. And we work with our friend Alex, and we have our friend Haley working with us. Yeah, we're going strong with the tattoos. So long as the virus doesn't shut us down again. So for those of you that haven't been in on these live streams before, so we're probably about 5 streams in maybe on this Mermaid. And then I also have a stream where I worked on, I've got the paintings back here. I did a Hanya mask. I did a freehand portrait of a dog, which still needs to be finished. What else did I work on? A couple of portraits. So there's plenty of streams to watch if you guys go back in the archives, I suppose. This painting, right now, it feels like a never-ending painting. That's how I feel about it. Like, I don't think I've done anything this ambitious as far as one singular painting is concerned. That's one good thing about doing monochromatic stuff all the time is I just pretty much, I'm able to just sit there and just work on one piece at a time and not have to build up a lot of color. But when you do the full color stuff, it's a lot of back and forth. A lot more to it. This is definitely feels like one of those like ultra paintings. Like I've had friends that do these like hugely detailed paintings. They always talk about like they worked on them for a year or whatever. That's what this one is starting to feel like. And I've never done a painting like that before. That was that in depth or involved. I've always kind of wanted to, though. So here I am, I guess. So you guys get to come along and watch me through my first time doing something like this. But I've done definitely a lot of color portraits and color paintings and things like that, but they're usually very simple. It's usually just like a subject matter and then, kind of background, or maybe it's a motorcycle where there's not a lot of background. But this, I mean, the background is busier than the foreground. The easiest part of this painting is the mermaid. So what was the most difficult painting that I had to paint? I think right now maybe this one. Maybe. I don't find a lot of things difficult. To me, it's not about difficulty. It's about time. But maybe this one is probably the most difficult one, I would say. Yeah, Mike says that this will be a hard one to know when it's done. Yeah, and I'm glad that you guys are here along with me for this. I was kind of concerned. I was like, man, here I got myself into this really in-depth painting. It might get boring for the live streams if you guys see me working on the same painting the whole time. You guys can let me know, but don't say it does make you boring, because then you're going to make me put it aside and I'll never finish it. But I'm happy that you guys can watch me work on it. Um, yeah. So I'm reading Weston right now. Says he apologized if I already answered this one, but so he says, let me read this real quick. He says, I apologize if you already answered this, but when I paint the water droplets on her skin, am I laying out flesh tone, then using white to make the water, or am I painting around the droplets? I'm doing a little bit of both. So the water droplets you're seeing currently, some of them are white and some of them are painting around them. For the most part, in my mind's eye, I don't really think too much about whether I'm painting um, water or skin tone or anything. I just kind of paint what I see and I let it kind of develop. So I'm not afraid to use white on top of my dark tones because I know how to kind of, shift color around. But yeah. And I'm not really going for that Drew Blair style of realism. I'm going for a very illustrated look. So, yeah, I do a little bit of both. I paint around them. Yeah, I just kind of create texture. I let my arm kind of just do what it does, and then I go with it. But I do both. I hope that's a good enough answer. Whenever I put the white down, it's just to bring the highlights back up, and then I'll paint around it anyway. So sometimes it's easier to paint through it and then to put white down and then paint around it before I get to my dark tones. So I'll do that sometimes as well. Um, cool. All right. It's funny. You know, this painting is a good metaphor for when I used to paint motorcycles full time. I would often quote a job at a certain price and think that I can do it at that price, and then I never do. I always I'll still end up having to do the job for a low price, but I end up putting like 20 hours, 30 hours more into the motorcycle than I anticipated, and I lose money on it. And um, it's just because my ambition, I always want things to be done right, and I don't really care much about time or anything like that. And this painting is kind of a similar thing, is because when I started the painting, it was to just create content for you guys, and but it's turned out to be uh, quite an in-depth painting. But I needed an excuse to do a painting like this, honestly. I've been saying it for 10 years that I would do an involved painting. And now this will probably inspire me to do something like what I was talking about earlier with the clouds and everything. Maybe I'll do something really... Like I said, after watching The Last Airbender, the Avatar cartoon, I was watching it just thinking of like, look how much art and attention went into just one little cartoon. And a lot of you, when you're on Netflix, you probably scroll right past it, and because it's a cartoon or whatever. But if you actually look at it, and this is true of all animes and cartoons, but the art and the time and the care that went into this is pretty incredible. And it was inspiring. So last night when I was watching it, I was just incredibly inspired to come down here and paint. So I was like, man, if I put that much energy into my artwork, think of what I would create. And when I say Avatar, if you guys want to watch it later, it's the cartoon, not the movie. The movie's pretty bad. Still a beautiful movie, though. Oh, wow. Sorry, Mike. I didn't see that in the comments. Oh, man, that's too bad. Wow. Well, I hope you get better. Well, at least we got some entertainment for you, man. Man, I apologize. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm not. That's terrible. Get well soon. Mike says you're still going to SEMA. Man, I don't know if I'm going to make it to SEMA this year. I'll try to, for sure. It depends on how the shop's doing at the time. But SEMA is going to creep up on us pretty quickly. I hope that Faith and I are able to take our RV to SEMA again. Because last year, we parked our RV out in the desert. And I loved it. So basically, like we usually in SEMA, I'll have like a hotel that's sponsored by, you know, a company or something. But last year we had our RV with us, and we went out to I think it's called Painted Desert or something. It was some BLM land. It was beautiful. Like, so we got to go into Vegas and do the whole SEMA thing and then leave, and we got to stay like in the beautiful desert at night in the middle of nowhere, completely alone, and it was only 20 minutes away. So that's probably what we'll do again if we get the opportunity. So if anyone has an RV and you can afford the trip, if you go to SEMA, I definitely recommend doing the BLM land if you're going to go to Las Vegas. For those of you who don't know what BLM land, that's Bureau of Land Management. It's free land that you can stay on, so you don't have to pay anything, really. And we have a generator. Our generator lasted us the whole week long. And then after that, I think we took off to California. I think we stopped off in Moab, if I'm not mistaken. No, Moab was before Las Vegas. It was a pretty epic trip. Oh, we got a super chat from Dustin. Thank you so much. Yeah. Dustin says we need Brady back for the dad jokes. I know, man. I'm kind of lame without Brady, huh? Just regular old me. It's because I'm painting and I'm talking at the same time. It's funny. So I've been teaching people how to paint and do art. And like when it comes to using either a tattoo machine or using an airbrush, it's such a skill that you have to learn. And when you're learning that skill, it seems so impossible, right? And I always tell people, I'm like, eventually you're going to get to where you don't think about it anymore. And for me to be able to talk on camera and paint is actually like kind of an illustration as to like sometimes the skill just takes over and it becomes an extension of your arm. Like, and it's pretty hard to talk and paint at the same time, not gonna lie. That's why I always stop to kind of chat with you guys, because it's not easy to do. I'll get lost in my own thoughts. I'll stumble over my words. That's also why I'm kind of jumping around the painting a lot. I think when I'm painting by myself, I don't jump around so much. I turn on some music, and I kind of get lost in the painting. And I'll sit there and I'll just focus on one spot. But since I'm talking a lot, I'm jumping around a lot, just so I don't overwork a certain area because I'm distracted. But thanks again, Dustin. That's too bad. I hope you make it, Mike. Oh, thanks, Dustin. What time is it in Florida? It's 7:55 right now. Yeah, Mike had it. It's actually early. I might actually turn in early tonight just because Faith and I have to go do some shopping, and we haven't done it. And Sunday is our only real day off. And so we have to try to make it to, I think, Target. Hopefully we'll make it to Target before they close. I don't know if things are closing early right now. I know that Florida right now is in a lot of trouble because I guess the coronavirus is pretty heavy here right now. So yeah, so we might not have access to the stores like we used to. We're trying to make it to Target. Faith wants to get a what do you call it? Like a crock pot. I forget what they call it. It's like a super duper crock pot. What's that thing called? Instapot. She wants to get an Instapot. So an Instapot is a pretty handy thing to have when you're in an RV because you can cook so many different things with it. And we have a lot of like dry goods like beans and things like that. So I'm looking forward to it. I do want to kind of take out and get that Instapot because I'm looking forward to eating some Instapot food tonight or tomorrow morning, however long it takes. So if you guys haven't tried yet, an Instapot with a combination of a air fryer, that's a pretty neat combination of tools. Our cooking, what do you call it? Cooking products. I don't know. My brain doesn't work when I'm painting. I can't think of anything. All right, I'm just gonna dust some color over this just so I can go back in. We might do a stream in the future, like I was saying, sometimes I just focus, where I'll probably won't do any talking. I'll probably just turn the music on and let you guys just watch. That way I can get kind of lost in the painting. It's kind of boring that way, but at least you can see what it's like when I'm actually like full on like immersed in the painting. When I do SEMA every year, I always have to paint in front of people. And doing these live streams is very similar. I don't have to paint in front of people. I should say that differently. I like to paint in front of people. Although in recent years I've kind of stopped doing it, just because I went one year and it looked like there was a lot more people that wanted to paint, and I just decided to kind of step aside and let them paint because they were, I don't know, they were kind of arguing. So I was just like, you know what, you guys can paint. Go ahead. Like, I don't know. I felt bad because I've already painted for so many years out there in SEMA. I don't need to really take up any room. So I just let other people do it. Nate says it's bad in Idaho. Yeah, it's bad all over, man. We live in a very, very strange time, guys. A very, very, very strange time. I kind of wish we could go back to some sense of normalcy. I can't wait for that. I would like, I think, you know, remember when the worst thing we had to worry about was like who was going to win American Idol or some shit like that? I'd like to go back to that. I will say taking trips out in the nature is a really good thing. Kind of helps get away from this kind of false reality we kind of live in right now. Well, I guess real reality, but you know what I mean. With the news and with, I don't know, all that nonsense. Mike says it'll be normal after elections. I'm looking forward to it, man. Just give us a boring thing back again. That's what I want. Just something boring. I can't say that this coronavirus is all that normal, though. This is something I never thought. You know, when I was a kid, if you were to ask me what it would be like in 2020, I would have thought about the flying cars. I would have thought we would have solved all war. I would have thought we were all like, I don't know, living in some sort of like blissful future. And even though I do think the future is pretty cool, but it's definitely not what I would have guessed so far, anyway. Maybe this is something good's gonna happen. It's like the Roaring Twenties are coming back, you know. So 1921 or 2021 is gonna be like this super cool thing, you know. I know I'm gonna do my best to make it cool. Like I kind of live my life nowadays like trying to prioritize happiness as much as possible, no matter what. Like if there's anything negative in my life, I try not to have it in my life for very long, if I can help it. And by the way, I got off of Facebook because it's super toxic. So if any of you guys are on Facebook, stay off of there. The place is dangerous. And Instagram and all that. I had to start unfollowing people, by the way. Because some of you guys are going crazy. I don't know about you guys specifically, but there's some people right now. They're going crazy on that shit. I had to start unfollowing. Luckily, I don't get on Facebook anymore, but they started bringing it over into Instagram. That's when I was like, bye. I mean, we all have our points of view. I have mine. You guys don't want to hear mine, so I don't tell you. Now, if you're sitting in my tattoo station, yeah, we'd probably talk about it a lot. I'm pretty much a talker. A lot of people that come to get tattooed by me, a lot of them say one of the things they like about getting tattooed by me is just conversation. Because we'll sit there and we'll talk about anything. And I'm a pretty open-minded dude, and I'm also pretty opinionated, so it makes for pretty good conversations. I'm always willing to see somebody else's version of a story, you know, of the conversation. I know I at one time I thought I should start wearing headphones because I wanted to be more efficient with my tattoos. And then my clients were complaining. They were like, no, no, we like it better when you're talking. I'm like, well, I mean, I'd go faster if I had headphones on. They were like, no, it's fine. I'm like, all right. So now I just have music on the speaker. Oh, thank you, Dennis. So I got 10% battery on my tablet. That'll probably be my cutoff time, just so I can make sure that I have enough time for Faith and I to go and do some chores tonight. Like I said, go get that Instant Pot. Got to do a bunch of laundry. You know how it is. Got to do life stuff. So does anybody have any questions for me about anything at all before we're not winding down right now, but I'd like to get, if there's anything y'all want me to talk about specifically. I know a lot of people, it kind of sucks, not sucks, but I get a lot of the same questions, so I don't want to, I don't mind answering the same questions at all. I don't mind it at all, but I always feel bad because I feel like maybe there's something I'm overlooking. Mike says it's fun to debate. Dude, I don't have the energy to do that on Facebook, man. Seriously, like, I can't stomach it. Like, I'll sit there and I'll start to type something, and then I back out immediately. I'm like, dude, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it. Like, there's a million people in this world with a million points of view, man. I feel strongly about a few things, but I just don't have the energy. I used to do that. I used to type things in on Facebook, but then there would be this like explosion of comments under my video or my picture or whatever it is I posted, and I just couldn't handle it. I was like, man, all I did was like type in one thing. I didn't know you guys were gonna go crazy about it. Not you guys specifically, but whoever was, commenting. And I was just like, you know what? I'll just keep it to myself. But anyone who knows me and sees me every day, they know there's no shortage of opinions or talking points or debates in real life. Although I still try to curb those even. I don't like being like I don't like to be a know-it-all. I think I kind of act that way naturally, and I don't like it. It's kind of like my natural ADD like default setting. To talk a lot. What's the best way to lighten paint with white and not get the blue shift? Good question. All right, I'm gonna give you the long answer and the short answer. So the long answer is this: because I use Createx illustration colors, the illustration colors are fine. They're ground down a lot thinner. Plus, when you add certain things to them, like the 4012, what happens is they kind of they melt into the color below them. So if you were to say take the Wicked colors, which is a stronger pigment, they lay on top of each other. The pigments do. They lay on top of each other. That's where you get a lot of that blue shift. But you'll notice with the illustration colors, they kind of melt into each other. So the first thing is you just simply using the illustration colors does help a lot with the blue shift by itself, just because they melt into each other, especially when you're using certain solvent-based additives, like, again, the 4012 or something like that. Now, and when you use the 4030, it helps a lot too. Now, another thing you can do to highlight things without a blue shift is by adding additives like the 4050 or the 4030, which is an intercoat clear. And what that does is it disperses, so basically it thins it out a lot more. The long and short version of it is it's a clear with a lot of body to it, so it disperses the white a little more evenly so the white doesn't take over. Now, once you've got the white down there, you're of course going to have a subtle bit of blue shift on there. Now, the way to counteract that blue shift is the same thing I was doing earlier in the stream. It's where you add the opposite. Now, the opposite of blue, or a cool color, is a warm color, right? So the opposite of blue is going to be orange. So if you were to just dust some orange over the blue, you're going to kill that blue shift. So what I do is I anticipate the blue shift, and I can compensate for it while I paint. So I already know that before I add the white, there's going to be some blue shift, and I already know that my next layer will already compensate for it. Not to mention it melts into the color below it anyway. And I know that's the very long and drawn out complicated answer, but it works for me very well. And you guys are going to see me do it as we go. As long as you're consistently compensating for the blue shift, you can control the blue shift as you go. So I anticipate it. I already know it's going to shift blue. So I will arrange my painting in a way that is complemented by that blue shift. And then when I add the layer on top of it, if I need to kill a little bit of that blue, I will. And so I can actually tint the colors all the ways I want. And I don't go for perfection. I go for something neat. So that's the complicated version of the answer. So I don't think I could do it as well if I had just simply illustration colors. Or not illustration colors, I'm sorry, if I just had Wicked or another type of color. I think the fact that I use illustration colors and the fact that I use an additive like 4012 and 4011 and 4050 and 4030, those types of things, because I add, and this, by the way, this is the 4030 right here, okay? And because I add those sorts of things to it, I've been able to fine-tune my colors over the years, and now I can go back and forth between light and dark 100 times and never get that blue shift. That's why that's why when I'm in public and people want to argue things, I'm just like, hey, whatever works for you works for you. This works for me, and I made it this way on purpose, you know? So rules are meant to be broken. So I actually think my paintings look better because I go back and forth between white and dark so often. So anyway, that's my long version of the answer. I hope you found the answer somewhere in that big giant explanation. But the short answer is compensate for the shift. So if it's blue, add orange. If it's, if it's cool, add a warm color. You always want to use the opposites, and you can always kind of shift it around. Dennis wants to know if I enjoy airbrushing as much as tattooing. I enjoy the artistic form of airbrushing. Like for me, as far as being a creative is concerned, I can express myself far easier and far more fluid. Like I feel more natural with an airbrush in my hand than with anything else in my hand. And so when it comes to being an expressive artist, I think that my airbrush is my favorite tool. Now, when it comes to making money and being a professional artist, I think that my tattoo machine is my favorite tool. So the short answer to that is I like my tattoo machine for money. I like my airbrush for art. Mike says, do I use orange to gray it? Yeah, and I don't always it's not always that simple either. Like, do I just use orange or whatever? What I do is I just kind of grab colors at random, and as long as the colors are shifting it the way that I want it, I'm cool with that. So Um, I like to build my colors. So like I said, I'm constantly going back and forth between my whites building on top of grays. That's why my first go at things, I don't care if they're not perfect because I feel like perfection is achieved with each layer. Now, I used to be more perfect, in which I followed all the rules, and I would use an eraser a lot because I didn't want to use any white, and I would use stencils a lot because I didn't want to contaminate my colors. But as I got better and as my paint became something that was like I can control my paint like think of a chef making food. Like if you're not a chef, you probably don't know how to just grab spices at random and make something delicious. But over time, you get to know things so well that you don't need a recipe anymore, and you can just grab spices at random, and you can make bake or make anything at will. And so I'm kind of that way with my paintings now. I don't worry too much about rules. I just kind of just do it, and it always kind of gets me there. So, yeah. And that just comes from years of practice, really. I learn more from my mistakes than I think that I learn sticking to the rules. Every time I make a mistake, I have to compensate for that mistake and try to like dig myself out of the hole that I've created. And I always learn something. And a lot of times I try to recreate those mistakes because I made an effect that I never would have thought to use before. So every mistake is actually more valuable than some of the textbooks sometimes. How many layers do I average in a painting? I would say somewhere around 6. This one's gonna have more, but I think I've got my black and gray stuff, like my monochromatic stuff. I've got that down to 5 layers, I think. This one will probably end up with about 7 layers, I would guess, maybe. I'm not limiting myself on this one. I'm just gonna paint it, and eventually it's gonna be a finished painting. That's kind of how my attitude is right now. It's like just work on it and see where it goes. Eventually, it's going to be done. And eventually, you're going to get there. And that's kind of a luxury that I didn't used to have when I painted full-time, like on cars. I didn't have the luxury of just like working on it to whatever level felt comfortable. I was usually under the gun, and I had to work on it like I had to stay up for like 3 and 4 days straight working on something. And well, of course I would sleep, but sometimes I would sleep under my table. I'd sleep in the cars, and like the cars that were in the body shop, just so I could hit a deadline. And so this is very, very new to me. Oh, our phone's ringing. I don't know who that is. Sorry, I'm not going to answer it. But it's very new to me to paint at a comfortable, like, finish when you finish kind of way. So you guys are kind of seeing me do this for the first time. That was probably somebody wanting to do a walk-in. I get that a lot. People call like at the end of the night or in like in our off times, and they're like, "Can I come in to get a tattoo right now?" All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and cut the stream and figure out what this phone call is. I'm about to go dead anyway. But anyway, thank you guys for coming in. It's been great. We're closed anyway. I shouldn't answer the phone, but I need to cut the stream anyway. So thank you guys for coming in. Let me see if we got any more. Exalta. Mike says you should check out Peter Meyer's artwork. It's all airbrush and I with Exalta. I've used Exalta before. Thanks, Nick. He says thanks for live streaming. Yes, you should definitely paint tonight. Cool. All right, guys. So the next one, I think I'm going to finish this hair kind of off camera just because it's such a What do you guys think? Should I do the hair with one of those streams where I don't talk? Because I think that's what I need to do it right. Because if you guys pay attention here, like I have to kind of get into the zone, which means I can't do really anything else. So I might do that with the hair. Maybe that'll be the next stream. What I'd like to do, let's see, how much do I got left? I have to finish the water. That's going to be a chore and a half right there. So we'll see how it goes. But anyway, yeah, thanks guys for joining. And I'll catch you next time. Take it easy.